We are starting out the new year, and I know a lot of people, although we love to cook here, we're looking for a little bit healthier recipes. They don't have to be fully healthy. That's why we're just calling these healthier. They're just great options if you still love food, you still love flavor, but you want some healthier options. Tonight we're gonna make salsa fresca chicken. So good and so easy to make. You can make this with chicken breasts or chicken thighs, and it's delicious. You could probably actually make this with pork chops too. Now you guys know if our chicken breasts are too thick, we do like to cut them in half this way. I wanna make sure that they're thinner, they cook more evenly, in my opinion. Then it's not an abundance of a serving of chicken. So at the end of the meal, you feel like, oh, I ate so much. So we're just cutting these in half so that they are the thickness that we prefer. And we're gonna add spices. We want to coat this thing in all of the spices that we love. So overall, I'm probably using about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. Sprinkle that all over your chicken. About 1/4 to a teaspoon of salt. We are using pepper. You can use black pepper, white pepper. We always have white pepper available here at our house. Garlic powder, onion powder, again, about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon. Take some salsa. I actually made my salsa homemade because it's been so long since actually my husband and I were dating, and one of his cousins had us over for dinner, and she had the best salsa at her table. I mean, I must have eaten an entire cup of salsa that night. So she gave us the recipe to her salsa, and it's so good. And basically the secret ingredient is cumin. She adds a lot of cumin to hers, and it is so good. So simple, but so good. And I'm gonna cover it with some of that homemade amazing salsa. And then we're gonna top with cheese. Now for this recipe, we're actually using a Monterey Jack cheese. I'm freshly shredding this Monterey Jack. I feel like this is the game changer. Obviously, if you are cutting out cheese at this point, you can leave the cheese off. It's still gonna be really good, but having that specifically that Monterey Jack cheese is the highlight of this. Top the chicken with that Monterey Jack cheese, and you're gonna bake this in the oven at 375 degrees for about 30 minutes. Honestly, for chicken breasts, I really do like to use a thermometer. If you have one available, it's one of those things that so quickly overcooks, and then if you overcook chicken breasts, it's just not good anymore. So we're gonna use a thermometer to try and get to that 165 degrees, but not over. That's a big deal. Once you serve these, top it with a little bit of extra parsley if you want to, or some cilantro even. This is gonna give your family a really tasty meal, bursting with flavor. Love that homemade salsa that goes with it, that Monterey Jack cheese. You're still getting a nice lean chicken breast with this, but with all those bold flavors. And then all those spices that you put on the chicken add tons of flavor. So the flavor profile of this is excellent. Tonight we're gonna make some pork chops. This is probably not something that you've seen a lot on my channel, because it's not something that we make a whole lot. But let me tell you, if you do it right, they are so delicious. Now, if you're like us, in the past, years and years ago, we used to make pork chops, and every time we were like, why are these so dry? Why are they just not good? Just not good. But then we learned about making a brine for your pork chops. And if you make a brine and just let them soak in this brine for a couple of hours before you cook them, game changer. It completely changed the way that we thought about pork chops. It's very easy to make. Don't let the word brine, if you don't know what that is, scare you or deter you, because it's so easy and it's so good. It basically just infuses the pork chops with the most amazing flavor. We're gonna get our brine ready for our pork chops. And I'm just gonna use these glass storage containers that I have for this. Now, a brine has tons of flavor, so don't be alarmed by the amount of things that we're putting in here and the quantities. We need about 1/4 cup of salt, we're adding a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. You can actually use whole peppercorns. I'm just gonna use some of this white pepper and just about a teaspoon or so. My bay leaves are looking kind of sad, but we are gonna add a little bit in here. You want about 2 bay leaves. So I'm gonna add a couple broken pieces. Adding in some garlic, overall probably 4 to 6 cloves. So it is a lot of garlic, okay? Again, don't be alarmed because this is just the brine. It's just gonna help add flavor while it's just marinating, basically. Okay, we're just gonna add some thyme from the garden. Now, the only type of orange that I have right now are these little mandarin oranges, but I'm gonna go ahead and peel it and add that in as well. The citrus actually helps to kind of break down the meat and just make it really tender. If you don't have an orange, that's okay, but I would suggest that you maybe add some orange juice, lemon juice, something like that. I'm also kind of peeling off the skin of the orange because I want to make sure that that flavor is really going to get into the pork chop. Okay, let's add in at least 2 cups of chicken broth. And then this is chicken stock, bone broth, by the way. Okay, I've got these really delicious looking pork chops from our Good Chop box, which if you guys haven't ordered from Good Chop, I do have a discount code, so you can check that out in my description box. We love everything we've gotten from them so far. And let's just take these out and we're gonna set them in the brine. This is gonna get really full. I think we're gonna be okay. I think we'll be able to fit all these in. All right, let's put the lid on. Shake it around a little bit. And actually, you know what? Let's add a little bit of water. We really want the brine to cover it completely. And it's totally fine to add water. As a matter of fact, the majority of recipes call for water. We're gonna get right to the top of this. The goal of a brine is you really want these to sit in this for 1 to 3 hours before cooking. So we'll put this into the refrigerator and just let it work. So to go with dinner tonight, I've got some sweet potatoes in the air fryer. They actually take about 35 to 40 minutes. So I put those in a little bit ago. Over here on the counter, I took out the pork chops in the brine and I actually turned it upside down onto my counter so that I could get the brine all over the ones that were on top. It's a really good idea to bring pork chops to room temperature before you cook them for a more even cook. Now you can make these completely in the oven, but we're gonna do first on the stovetop to get a nice sear on all of the edges. Then we'll put this into the oven. And my oven is currently preheating to 375 degrees. Over here, I have prepped some asparagus. We're gonna have that with dinner tonight. And this I'll just sear on the stovetop. Okay, let's get this turned on. And I'm gonna do a medium-high heat with this on the burner properly. I just have about maybe 1.5 teaspoons of oil that I put into my cast iron skillet. You don't need a lot, especially if you're using a cast iron, just because it's probably already seasoned anyway. We're gonna get this heated up so that we can add in the pork chops. And that is our indication that it is ready to go. Starting to get a little bit of color. I am going to render the fat, which means I will turn each one of them up on their sides so that we can really make sure there's no white fat. You do not want that at all. So up on the sides, like so. Now, if you want to cut down on the fat content, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to add a little bit of butter into my pan. It just helps to flavor up this crust that I'm making here. Okay, so you can see this one is actually perfect. How you're really getting that color on the side, that's what you're looking for. Just to make sure that these don't dry out while in the oven, I'm gonna add a little bit of that brine. to the pan. I'm also going to use a meat thermometer, which is not something that we do regularly, but this is just something that you don't want to overcook. So we want to get to right around 140. Okay, we're just going to cook up the asparagus. This I usually just do in like a little bit of chicken broth and salt. They're so easy. You can add oil to the pan, butter to the pan, whatever you like. So easy. Our pork chops are at 140, and ideally you want them to come up to 145, but they will get there just by resting in the pan. So we're gonna take this out, and these really need to rest for about 10 minutes. Friends, how good do these pork chops look? They are cooked to perfection. Now, a couple tips for pork chops, if you're gonna do this, especially boneless ones, get a good quality pork chop, obviously. These we use from Good Chop. They're very, very good. They're nice and thick. Use a brine. Soak them in a brine, add that wonderful flavor, use a bit of citrus, and really help to break down the meat, and it's so good. Don't over brine them though, because it actually can really break it down and kind of make it mushy. So you want to be careful not to let them sit in the brine too long. We usually do about 1 to 3 hours. Then get a meat thermometer. You don't want to overcook pork chops, because if you take them out right in between that 135 and 140 and then let them rest to get up to that 145, it's so good. They're so, so good with amazing flavor. So if you've been scared of pork chops, don't be. It is a great white meat option if you're tired of chicken, adding in a different element to your weekly menu. If you soak your pork chops in a brine, let me know in the comments below. And if you have a different recipe for it, I'd love to know. We always are looking for new recipes for this. If you are a pork chop lover, what's your favorite way to make them? Do you bake them in the oven? Do you make them on the grill? What is your favorite? For dinner tonight, we're making honey sriracha chicken bowls. The first thing that we have to do is to cut up some broccoli. I'm just gonna cut these up into florets, the size that we prefer. You can obviously make them as big or as little as you want, whatever your preference is for your family. So I'm gonna use 1 full head of broccoli, but it's totally up to you, the amount. If you wanna add more, definitely feel free to add more. Now, I already have some shredded carrots that I'm gonna add into this. You don't have to add carrots, you don't have to add broccoli. You can add whatever you want, but pretty much everything else is gonna happen over at the stove top. So we're gonna move over there and get started. All right, I have my pan heating over here. I have my large frying pan. We're gonna add about a tablespoon. This is avocado oil. Get that nice and hot in the pan. And I'm gonna add in all of the broccoli that we chopped. And let's just leave it alone for 1 to 2 minutes and start to get a nice coloring on the broccoli. Okay, like I said, I already have some shredded carrots. I just store these in my fridge because we eat them every day. So I'm going to add that, just kind of sprinkle it around. Like I said, you can leave these out. You don't have to add it. Another option could be red bell pepper. That would be really pretty in here. While this is cooking, I'm just gonna add a little bit of garlic powder, maybe a teaspoon, and the same with onion powder. Just a bit of onion powder. We're just gonna add a little bit of flavor. Oh, and this is a new one. Now it's been sitting like this for a few minutes. Let's go ahead and start that stirring. Start to get some color on the other sides. We need to set these vegetables just on a plate so we can cook up our ground chicken. So I'm gonna transfer them to this plate. We're using this ground chicken right here. We're gonna put it into our frying pan and just get that cooking. And then while it's cooking, we'll make up our sauce that's gonna go all over this. We've got this sweet Thai sauce, which you guys have seen us use many times. We need about a 1/4 cup. And to that, I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of honey. You guys know I like to do this just by looks. Depending on the amount of heat that you want in this, you're gonna do 2 to 3 tablespoons of Sriracha, just about 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. We're adding some of our favorite ginger paste. I like to add maybe 2 teaspoons. Okay, let's get that stirred together. Our chicken is almost fully cooked. Okay, let's add in the sauce and stir it around. Now we want to be careful not to burn it, so I'm going to a medium-low heat, but we do want to allow it to thicken up a bit, which it's already pretty thick, so that shouldn't be an issue. We'll just let this cook for a few minutes. Let's add back in the vegetables and stir all of that together. And once all this is reheated through again, it's pretty much ready to serve. We are gonna serve ours over rice, but you could choose however you wanna serve this, obviously just depending on your needs and the things that you like. Now, if you're not a fan of ground chicken, obviously you can use ground turkey, ground beef. There's plenty of options that you can use to substitute with this meal. I like all the colors that I'm seeing. Ours does have a little bit of that kick because of the Sriracha. If you want less, obviously add in less Sriracha because nothing else in this added additional spice. But the flavors are really good. I personally really like the balance of flavors here. The saltiness and then some of the sweetness from the sweet Thai chili sauce and stuff like that. This is a great option for dinner. This is one of those recipes that we have made time and time again. We change it up depending on what's available in the refrigerator and in the pantry. We'll just add whatever kind of stuff we have available. So don't feel like just because you don't have every single thing that I add into this recipe that you can't make it, because you absolutely can. We are gonna start this by making the little marinade that the chicken goes in, and then the chicken will go in it, but we're also gonna use the marinade for the rest of the dish. But that way it can be sitting in it for about 15 minutes or so while I prep everything else. So into this bowl, I am adding about a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup of olive oil. Now for us, we're going a little lighter on the olive oil, more toward the 1/4 cup, because I'm using chicken thighs. And so for me, I'm just gonna cut down on that. You can obviously use chicken breasts for this recipe, but it is gonna bake in the oven. And I've said it here before, we prefer, if we're gonna bake chicken, that we do thighs. They just come out better in my opinion. But if you're looking for a leaner option, feel free to go with the chicken breasts. Let's add in about 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. You can use a fresh lemon, but I really need mine for tomorrow, so we're just gonna use this jar. We need about 3 to 4 cloves of minced garlic. Let's add some salt. I'm gonna add about a teaspoon of salt. You can go less on this if you want, but it is a marinade. I wanna make sure there's really good flavor here. About 2 teaspoons of oregano. A teaspoon of thyme, a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. Now, let me tell you, if you are not using Dijon mustard in your marinades, you're missing out. There's great flavor in this. It is not just a sandwich condiment. It's really, really great for dressings and marinades. You can also add pepper to this if you want. We are going to just mix everything together here, and then I'm gonna be adding in my chicken thighs. Now, you guys know I like to cut off the fat from my chicken thighs a little bit. Obviously, I know it's still a more fatty protein, but I do like to cut some of it off, and then we're gonna add it into that. All right, so we've got all of our chicken in here. We just kind of move it around a bit to make sure that we're gonna get that marinade over all of that chicken. Oh my goodness, it is gonna be so good. If you guys have been here for a while, you've seen this very similar marinade be used on steak bites before when we make Greek bowls. It's so good. I mean, this is just the marinade. We love Greek flavors. We love Mediterranean flavors. This is like our go-to. All right, friends, I've got some washed potatoes here. I'm going to be dicing these, and I'm actually going to dice them significantly smaller than I probably would on any other sheet pan. And that's because sometimes When we do sheet pan, I will actually cook the potatoes first, then add the protein because the potatoes can take longer. But the smaller you dice them, the shorter the cooking time. And I'd like to cook it all together tonight on the same pan. So that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna make maybe 1/2 inch diced pieces. So they're just gonna be smaller than normal. You don't have to use potatoes. Another great option for this sheet pan would be zucchini. Zucchini and squash would be really good on here. We've done broccoli with this one before. You can do green beans, you could do Brussels sprouts. We just love root vegetables. We are a potato loving family. Just follow the same basic concept. You know, you can use that marinade for plenty of things. Now this next ingredient might come as a little surprise, but I can use onions in recipes like this, even though my husband doesn't like them, because I can just use a little bit and it's not mixed in, right? So he can pick through it and easily just not eat what he doesn't want to eat. I just add a little bit. I just think that having a little bit of onion on here, first, it looks really pretty. Second of all, I love the flavor, so I like to have it in there. And then I also like to add a little bit of green. So we've got our bell pepper. Now again, I've done this plenty of times without bell pepper because we didn't have it available. It wasn't in our fridge, so obviously I wasn't gonna use it, but it's available this time, so it's convenient to just go ahead and throw it on there, making sure it doesn't just go to waste in the pantry, or in the refrigerator, I should say. And let's add a little bit of red pepper as well. Same process. All right, so that chicken has been marinating for a few minutes now. I'm gonna take it and just lay it on our parchment lined baking sheet. You can use parchment, you can use foil if you'd like. I mean, foil, you can wrap it around and it's gonna protect your baking sheet. You won't have to wash it quite as heavily, but that's what we have parchment paper right now, so that's what we're going with. So we're just gonna lay them out wherever you want, but save that, okay? Now we just start to take all of our other ingredients and go all around. Okay. So now we just take that marinade that we have left over and just kind of drizzle all around. And then I just give it a light toss just to try and get that marinade kind of spread out a little bit. Now I'm gonna sprinkle with a little bit of extra oregano and a little bit more salt. Just wanna make sure all the vegetables have good flavor. The next thing I add is some Kalamata olives. These are sliced, you can use whole, it's up to you. Just kind of toss them all around. Y'all, tell me this looks delicious. You know it does. I was gonna add tomatoes, but I don't even know where they'll go. Let's see if we can add a couple here. I don't know if I've ever told you guys, but my son eats these right here, these gourmet Mendley tomatoes. We go through a pack a week easily because he eats them like a snack. We'll walk by and grab a handful, and that is a snack for him. He loves them. The last thing I like to do is top with a little bit of feta cheese. Totally optional. I know a lot of you don't like feta cheese, and that's okay. It's okay. You just want to top with a little bit of feta if that's your thing, if you like feta. But y'all, come on. I mean, look at how beautiful and how good and all these amazing flavors. Again, if you want to cut down on the fat content, then don't add the feta cheese. It's a totally optional ingredient, but I mean, it looks delicious. We're gonna bake this at 425 degrees. It usually takes around 30 to 35 minutes. I always just watch it and make sure that stuff doesn't overcook though. It also obviously depends. If you have bone-in thighs, those are gonna take a little bit longer to cook. These are boneless, skinless, so they don't take quite as long to cook. So 425 degrees. This looks so delicious. I already know we're gonna love these flavors because they're just flavors that we love. Chicken is great. Just so you know, I ended up cooking it about 37 minutes. Again, ours is boneless and skinless, so just depending on what type of chicken thighs you're using, it could make a difference. Let's try some of the vegetables. They're perfect. You have that marinade on there that we added to the chicken. It adds great flavor to those vegetables. So every single bite is bursting with that Greek Mediterranean flavor that at least we definitely love. Our verse today comes from 1 John 3:1. See what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God, and that is what we are. The reason the world does not know us is that they didn't know him. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you need more inspiration, I highly suggest you check out the video that I have listed above. You've got several more awesome recipes in here, some of our favorites. You're gonna get even more inspiration in this video. I hope you have a great week.